The madness or the sadness. We're going to get into it here in just a little bit. Live from Las Vegas. I'm here at the Westgate. No, I'm not in the Superbook yet. It's too loud down there for me to get a live show, John. And John Murray is watching soccer instead of letting me use his office to film this. You guys get my crazy, hectic hotel room. My friend Alex was out till 4 o'clock in the morning with Tiesto at Live at the Fontainebleau. So if she happens to cruise by at any point in time, please, no judgment on my part. I was in bed like a good little sports bettor because I cannot wait to get into today's slate. The round of 32. Favorites crushed yesterday. We saw some dogs coming in Thursday. We've got Gianni the Greek, Ralph Michaels, Adam Trigger. We're going to go through all of the things you guys need to know for Saturday and Sunday because I'm going to Luke Combs tonight, and there is a 0% chance that I'm doing a show this early West Coast time tomorrow. Let's bring in VR. I saw him Thursday at the Westgate Superbook. We had the clubhouse. He brought Jackpot, and VR snuck out late. I had VCU. I was being a complete and utter monster. He then proceeds to tell me this morning that was one of his only losses this week. So I was very, very fortunate to be able to cash that for not only my bankroll, but also for my Calcutta, because I got absolutely slaughtered yesterday, VR.
Yeah, what a difference a day makes for me. I hope the internet seems to be cutting out. Let me know if it's a problem. I'm like, what are they doing after that big 6-0? I crushed yesterday. And if not for North Carolina, I'm still mad Thursday because I'd be so far ahead right now. We'd be really playing with house money because that was a 5% play, and they really should have got there. I ended up the day actually winning one more game than I lost anyway. But it just would have really springboarded us into yesterday. That was perfect. Stayed selective, ended up 6-0, and I was ready to send out at the end of the day Florida. But it was my pride that didn't want to ruin the perfect day. But luckily I have the steam sheet, which I was able to throw Florida in there for those guys in Iowa. Some of that late stuff that I didn't want to spoil such a perfect day, to be honest with you. A lot of stuff to get to today. This is where it changes. Okay. Now, thank you, Kelly, for giving me the floor like she does. So I'm just going to go off and share everything I can with you guys. This is where it starts to change. And between now and that Final Four weekend, you'll see the betting syndicates stepping up. And this is where they usually start doing the best as far as sides and total results. Actually, from the Sweet 16 on, if they're on a side or total, you want to be piggybacking it. They don't get involved a lot, but when they do, they're usually gold. But because this is where it starts to change. Again, I sound like a broken record, but the public's mentality shifts. And in the first round, they look for Cinderellas. They look for dogs. They look for upsets. And they're betting those big dogs. They're betting those double-digit dogs, taking the plus money, especially with some sportsbook out there willing to pay you if your team gets out ahead. So they take the dogs early on because all the talk coming into March Madness, who's this year's Cinderella? What are the upsets? Who's going to get ousted in the first round like North Carolina did? That's what the talk is. So, of course, that's what we look for, Cinderellas. That changes. Once we get to the 32 and on, the favorites start being the bias of the bettors, just like the overs do, where early it's not the case. So what did the betting syndicates do? They did what they always do. They got out ahead of the market on pretty much all these favorites. And then what you got to look for is the follow through or the buyback, slash middle, or even more gold if they come back the other side heavy, 5X, 10X it, where it was manipulated and this is the right side. Those are gold. But you got to follow the line to see if that's what's going to happen. Because here's what I have so far today. No steam sheets up. It's not necessary. I have the steam room today. My subscribers will get everything. Don't want to waste time having to keep uploading stuff into the steam sheet today because, again, time sensitive. A lot of things, UFC, college basketball, NBA, soccer will be coming through. But here's what we have. 788 Duke minus 10.5. That got follow through. They bet him again today at 11 and 11.5. Okay, those numbers are gone right now. But They also steamed the under 140 at the opener. Well, they came back and went over 138 this morning. That's what you got to be careful of with those early moves. 784, Houston, minus 10. 788, Gonzaga, minus 5.5. 786, Arkansas, minus 11. Arkansas, minus 11.5. 774, Michigan State, minus the 4. 792, Nevada, minus 7.5. I know that's NIT. 820, Kentucky, plus the 5. And 781, Nebraska, plus the 2.5 were the only dogs I've seen so far. And then also 779, under 151.5, VCU, Illinois. So what's the big takeaway? Favorites, favorites, favorites. Why? Because that's exactly what the betting public's going to do. They're going to look to get out ahead on these favorites. The most one-sided bet so far. It's early, but I can tell by the parlays. Here's what's being parlayed. Are you ready? They're parlaying Michigan State, Duke, Michigan, Houston. Those 4 right there. Michigan State, Michigan, Duke, and Houston. That's the 4-team money line parlay that's being bet over and over and over again. And then teams are added to it. So they'll add a few more favorites or a dog or two that they like. And the one dog that's sticking out the most on those money line parlays that they're actually taking, like they're taking, like, Michigan State minus 2 whatever on the money line, Duke minus whatever 1,000 on the money line, Michigan minus thousands on the money line, Houston minus thousands on the money line. And then they'll take Texas, but plus 6.5. They won't take the plus money line on Texas. They want the 6.5. So Texas plus 6.5 is the one-sided dog that I'm seeing in a lot of those money line parlays where, like I said, they're tying up those favorites and they're betting every single over. St. Louis over, Duke over, Arkansas over, VCU over, Louisville over. All 4 overs. And again, most one-sided bets, Michigan State, Michigan, Duke, Houston, and Arkansas is starting to pile up. And the reason Arkansas is piling up is because it got steamed by sharp bettors early at minus 11, and the public's betting them as well. So I hope my internet was good and you guys got most of that. Thank you, Kelly, for giving me the stage like you do, and Gio just sitting by and letting me go off. I appreciate you, love you, and you're going to bounce back and do some damage today and tomorrow. Don't you worry.
I mean, look, I'm just sitting here taking notes like everybody else, VR. It works out well for me. I did get a text from Art to Caesar over at the Westgate Superbook. So Arkansas, Gonzaga, Nebraska was played. Here's the one that was interesting to me. You told me they played the under. A group came in and played the over 138.5. Do you think that was maybe to dummy up the market so they could come back on the under?
I like the over myself. Okay. Even though it's public, just based on my power rating, I have the game 141. So I kind of like the over 138. And I wouldn't have bet it, to be honest with you. I'm not betting it. I'm not giving it to subscribers or anything. But just based on that, I lean over. But with the public betting over and the first move under, that's a red flag. It's a pass for me.
Okay, so that's just a game we're going to look at, maybe scratch off the list.
And I'm VR, so sorry about the connection.
No, hey, listen, things happen. It could also be my Westgate connection. I think it's okay, though. I'm right by the window. Should be fine.
Yeah, because I usually don't have those problems.
You just never know. You never know, especially when you're traveling and working remote. So shout out to Wager Talk for letting me be able to do that. Shout out to the comment section. Lots of great comments this morning. Almost 1,000 of you have already joined in here. VR, before I let you leave, anything else you want to add? Anything else you think guys need to be looking at? Yeah, even possibly for Sunday.
Anything they want, any games. Hey, I'll tell you. Here's what I got. Here, I'll share real quickly. NIT, here's what I made. I made Dayton. I don't know I'm not even looking at what the line is, but I can tell you what our number is. Dayton -4 and 141.5. And then in the second game, Nevada -8.5, 9, closer to 9, and 148. So I don't know if those lines give you any kind of value there. I can also tell you I did get down on Arkansas -11 because I made that line 14 based on my power ratings. What else I can tell you is Michigan, all the public's on St. Louis like crazy. And I want to find reasons to bet Michigan because the strength of schedule is just so off. And they have so many advantages offensively, defensively, but I can't get there because my power rating has Michigan -11 and the line's like 12. So it would be my opinion. It would be me thinking because of how the market looks, because of how the line moves and me wanting to bet Michigan, but I don't have line value. That's where I'm stuck with some of these where I like the side, but I just don't have the line value to fire a bet. So that's why in the steam room, I'm going to share every opinion I have. That's why I'm doing it at 10 a.m., 1 p.m. Eastern. Okay. So I'll give you my opinion on side and total for every one of these games based on my power ratings. So you could use it as you wish. But that's where a couple of my lines are accurate with what the market has, which isn't surprising. Lines should be tight this late.
All right. Steam room is just for subscribers today, correct? Real quick, VR, did you hear me? The steam room is just for subscribers today. Is that correct?
Yeah. They're for the guys that are partnering up with me for the year. Yeah, those are for my guys.
Anything else?
Navigate. We're up for the year nicely, sitting number 2 in college basketball, baby. Go ahead.
All right. No, I just was curious if there was anything else you had to share.
Oh, no, I have the March Madness package today. The daily for Saturday. I'm going to fire. All my stuff is in there, and the UFC package is up as well. If I find a piece of gold, I'll put that over at Sports Memo as well for $7 for you guys today.
Love that.
March Madness.
Love that the gold is going over to the Sports Memo marketplace. Guys, head over there. Everything's $7. Absolutely. It's absolutely amazing. VR, thank you for hanging out with us here on this beautiful
Best of luck today to everyone. Do some damage.
Yeah, I'll see everybody down there at the Westgate Superbook before I go to Luke, if I have a voice left. Shout out to VR. Make sure you guys check out his steam room right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. I just saw Dan Alexander, our producer, pop in. He must not trust me. He probably doesn't know I am a good little Wager Talk worker, and I went to bed last night. Come on, Dan. We're going to bring in Ralph Michaels. Welcome in, Ralph. Good morning. Ralph sat by the pool this week there in Florida. I'm very jealous. I got to go to the pool for a little bit yesterday with our good friend Jeff Petch, the Mad Russian. We played some blackjack. We yelled at some college basketball dogs that just collapsed in the second half. Fun was had by all. Ralph, I wanted you to pop on today, not only because we don't have Rob Veno, but because I feel like I've been missing some of this TNA. I get on the Wager Talk YouTube channel, and all of a sudden I'm like, how did I miss this? How did I miss this on social media? You have put out some amazing nuggets round by round. Today starts the round of 32. What do you have for us?
Well, first, Kelly, let's look at what happened round 1. First off, we shouldn't be surprised at favorites anymore. 4 years ago, the favorites in round 1 covered 56%. In 2023, they covered 56%. Last year, they covered 59.4%. This year, they went 18-14, 62%. So favorites the last 4 years in round 1 are now 57%. So get that out of your mind. That 5-12 scenarios are gone. Those 9-8 scenarios are gone. And we see, the 9s beat the 8s. All 4 9s won this year. That's the first time that's ever happened in March Madness. But all of those lines were within 2 points. So those aren't really upsets. It's just the seeding is bad from the committee. So don't fall into the trap that just because the committee, who knows nothing about betting, made a team that is a higher seed should be a pick. Look at the lines and don't look at the seeds. Over-unders, the last 3 years have been significant unders to the tune of 34% over, 56% under. This year, round 1, 19 and 17, they actually did have more games go over than under. So let's look, since 2022, what's happened in round 2, Kelly? Favorites have gone 49.4%, basically the Mendoza line. But over-unders in round 2, 45 and 34, 57% to the over. Why does that make sense? Well, in round 1, how many double-digit favorites have we had? Those coaches know they are going to play a much better team in 2 days. So when they get to the second half, they start pooling their starters. Now, the better coaching staff takes over. They're better to implement a game plan with only 1 day of rest. And there's no need to rest starters because you're not playing again to next Thursday or Friday. So again, it makes total sense that round 2 games have gone over the total. But how about this tidbit, Kelly? when we look in round 2 games with a total over 143, so we're eliminating the low totals. The over-under 28-13, 68% to the over since 2020 in round 2. If we have a round 2 game with a total under 134, those games have gone 17-21, 45% to the over, so 54% to the over. So what do we take out of it? Favorites, dogs, do as you wish. Round 2 totals over 143, 68% to the over. Round 2 totals under 143, only 45% to the over. Make sense to you, Kelly?
Nothing makes sense to me right now, Ralph. Nothing. I'm over here putting in some arts plays. And right as I put in that Duke over 138.5, which by the way is 139.5, 140. So if you guys want to get it in, you're sitting here telling me I need to be looking at maybe the under. Listen, I feel a little defeated after yesterday, Ralph. I had a really great Thursday. I had so much fun. And then yesterday, it just seemed like outside of Cal Baptist, which was great. That was my best bet on it. That was my biggest play yesterday. I was very happy with their second half performance. Mizzou collapsed in the second half. Hofstra collapsed in the second half. It was just kind of one of those days where you're just like, hey, is another dog ever going to win a game again? It just feels like that. I tweeted Cinderella isn't dead, but she's on life support. Am I overreacting?
Again, I agree a lot with what VR is, but remember, these seeds that are now lower seeds with the transfer portal and the NIL, they're much closer. The 1-16s aren't like the 1-16s are because the SWAC and the MEAC teams. From 15 and above, it's a whole different scenario. So, and by the way, Kelly, that play on Cal Baptist, that was my 5% winner last night off a 3-0 sweep. So, I was looking at halftime and I was ill. So I took my gummy, I went to sleep, and what a nice shock waking up a few hours early. But I'll tell you what, when you have guard play like they have, Dominique is amazing. And a lot of times I like taking a bigger dog that doesn't shoot a lot of threes. If you have a offensive point guard in the second half against a big favorite, you get a lot of backdoor action. The defenses are playing backups. They don't have the same cohesiveness. They let the guys drive. They get to the foul line a lot. So I like the dogs, the big dogs early on that have those dynamic guards like Cal Baptist has.
Yeah, that was wonderful. I did enjoy that. I made the restaurant put the game on the TV. Of course I did. I looked at the score and I saw they're only down 7 and I was like, okay, great. Well, we gotta sweat this now because you're right. Just like at half, I was like, all right, I am done for the day. Ralph, what else you got going on over at Wager Talk? Do you have something for today up at Sports Memo?
Yep, let me share a few more things that I have real quick. Top 3 seeds in round 2. Top 3 seeds have been great in round 1. In round 2, they've gone 27-27 against the spread. But Kelly, you talked about the Duke over. In the last 4 years, in round 2, number 1 seeded teams, 15-4 in the over-under, 79%. They might have been challenged in game 1, but they took off in round 2. How about teams off a win as an underdog? Teams that won as a dog in round 1 are 38-50, 43% against the spread in round 2. And if that team is off a win as a dog of 5 or more, only one team applies. That's High Point. Those teams are only 13-22 against the spread, 37.1% ATS. And a few more things I want to share. If you, in round 1, allowed under 59 points, and now you're a dog of 6 or more, like Texas A&M is, those teams have gone 27-7, 79% against the spread. And if you have a big favorite that won but did not cover in round 1, like Vanderbilt, Gonzaga, Duke, and Michigan, those teams have gone 24-14, 63% against the spread. And if they're a favorite in round 2, Those teams, again, Vanderbilt, Gonzaga, Duke, and Michigan, have gone 21-10, 68% against the spread. I only have one March Madness play today, Kelly. I'm not going to force action. It's a strong 4-star. Again, I started March Madness 2-0 on Tuesday and Wednesday. Full disclosure, I went 0-3 round on Thursday. Yes, people were pissed. They signed up for the March Madness special, but it's a long tournament, guys. We rebounded yesterday going 3-0, including a 5% win. Don't miss my big 4% today, just $25, or the March Madness special still available, wt.buzz/RM.
Yeah, the March Madness special is still available over at Wager Talk. $149 gets you through the national championship. And if you're like me and you're all over the place, you should definitely check out Flex Picks, because then you can change your handicapper. Figure out who's hot and you ride the hot hand. That's what I personally prefer. Ralph Michaels, you are the best. Thank you for hanging out with us. Get back to the pool. Work on your tan for me. I'm so jealous. I can't wait to get back to the beautiful free state of Florida. At Cal Sports LV, if you guys are looking for some stuff for Ralph, if you guys haven't seen some of his shorts on the Wager Talk YouTube channel, he provides a ton of great info. I think his other one just got 10,000 views yesterday. I was like, how come Ralph is the TikTok king and I am not? Adam Trigger, he's trying to be the TikTok king. He's not yet, but he's working on it. Maybe he goes to
my Duke video's got like 115,000 views. Is that good? I think that's all right.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Right.
I think we can. I think we can agree that's pretty good. No Rob Veno today. He is out here in Las Vegas. Somehow he got to take the show off, where I, the person with no voice, didn't get to go to Tiesto last night and is here bright and early just for you guys. So can you give me a thumbs up? Can you give me a like? Can you tell me how much you hate me in the comment section? It'll be like X. It'll be perfect. Trig, how is your March Madness going so far? I mentioned Thursday was great. I was a beneficiary of some really good luck on VCU. I was a beneficiary of some good luck with some other teams late. Friday was basically the opposite outside of Cal Baptist. Everything I had went to shit, and it went to shit early and often. Talk to me about how your week's going so far.
So I can't complain about UCLA yesterday, because I won South Florida the exact same way on Thursday. So I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to complain about the UCLA -5.5 loss, because I had the same exact win with South Florida on Thursday. Kelly, I went 10-1 to finish out last week. So the fact that I'm like 7-7 this week so far, I can live with. Coming off of a week like that, I was, obviously you don't want to give it back. I think that's where I'm at right now for this week. 7-7. First round of 64 the last 2 days. 4-4. So kind of a wash. But I love this weekend's slate, especially the NIT games we get the next 2 days. So hop in with Rob and I. I haven't checked in on how Rob is doing, but he's having a fantastic season, and you can still get both of our plays for 3 days at a very low rate. It's the double the firepower CBB package that we've promoted all year. And it's a great bang for your buck in terms of like volume of plays. I've already got 2 4%ers for today. And who knows, maybe I'll even share one on this show. Probably going to add something else. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the weekend.
All right. Lots of love in the comment section. No, I'm in my hotel room, and that is the air conditioner. It's 100 degrees out here. I sweat. It's hot. I got on 67. Of course I do. So no, it's not the shower. Anyway, you guys are funny. Yeah, cooking with Crisco this morning. I'm going to put some Crisco so I can work on my tan. Maybe I'm going to go out by the pool. No, I was just, yesterday was just one of those days where I was like, nothing is going right. I should just stop gambling. And you get those moments in Vegas too, because you spend the whole day in the sports book and it's dark and it's gloomy and you have a great day, but you're still lacking some vital nutrients to help with your dopamine receptors. Let's get into some of these games. You're welcome, David. You are very welcome. I am here for you. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, maybe some bags underneath my eyes. That being said, we're going to have a great show. We're going to get into all of your questions Saturday or Sunday, because we are not going to be here tomorrow. So let's get right into some of these that I need to have starred. Right off the top, we're going 9 a.m., 9:15 Pacific. Trig, let's talk about the St. Louis, Michigan game. I know that VR said St. Louis was square, and I understand why the sharp guys play on the other side. But in the round of 32, Michigan hasn't covered 6 straight games. Michigan limped into the big dance as a 1 seed against the spread. That is, they were free falling ATS, right? Nobody wanted to touch this team. Let me look at their final score from the other day, because I believe they did not cover. Correct. They did not cover against Howard. I bet Michigan second half. So what I told VR before we came on was, we were sitting in the clubhouse and I was like, every single favorite, bet them, huge favorite, 1, 2, 3 seeds, bet them in the second half. The lone exception was I had Siena, but I bet it first. My buddy waited until Duke went to -4.5, and you could have actually middled that second half. Also, shout out to you for Siena. They helped me make a little bit of coin in my Calcutta because they did cover the spread. But back to Michigan not covering against Howard unless you bet them in the second half. I don't know if I trust this team. So as square dog as St. Louis might be, do we trust Michigan here laying double digits?
I mean, listen, Michigan's an outstanding team. They're probably going to be in the mix in this tournament. It's somewhat hard to see them losing this game, Kelly, but asking them to cover 12.5 when this team really hasn't covered big spreads all year in a game that's really not a great matchup for them. I'm on the other side. I lean toward the dog in this matchup. So St. Louis playing through Robbie Avila is similar to how Nebraska likes to attack. You go back to the Michigan-Nebraska game from earlier this year. Nebraska showed up without 2 of their best players, and specifically, Rink Mast was one of the players that did not play in that game. So Rink Mast would be a better version of Robbie Avila in terms of like playing that hub dribble handoff type offense. Nebraska went into Ann Arbor, nearly won that game. They were actually a similar underdog on the road. I think they were maybe catching 11 points there. And they led for a long stretch in that game till Michigan ended up taking over at the end, but didn't win by double digits. And they were down their 2 best players, arguably not only their 2 best players, but specifically Mast, the most sort of integral to play that style. St. Louis, I was at St. Louis's regular season finale, Fairfax, Virginia, against George Mason, Kelly. This team just looked uninterested. It looked like they were gassed from the regular season. They lost by 30. And even last week in the A10 tournament, losing to Dayton, I don't think that was a bad loss. Dayton's a very good team, but still, they really look like they were just tired. Against Georgia on Thursday night, that was the best they've played all year. And I was at the Dayton game in St. Louis where they crushed them. And I think that was one of their most impressive performances of the year. St. Louis looks re-energized. They look like the team that we all thought was elite in early January and going into A10 play. And they play like Nebraska, a team that gave Michigan trouble. So I don't know why you'd want to lay 12.5 here with Michigan, unless you're just like, well, they're due to cover at some point. But if you look at what Michigan's done all year, Kelly, that hasn't been a great way to approach them, because there was a stretch during conference play where they failed to cover in 7 or 8 games. Very good team, way inflated by the market. So it's 12.5 with the Billikens or pass.
Yeah, down to 11.5 here on the odds logic screen. So you snooze, you lose here on Saturday morning on the West Coast. Now you guys know why I love the East Coast time zone so much, because I actually am an early bird there. Here, I feel like I'm like late to the party. Let's keep it going with some of the square plays. According to VR, Louisville is 5.5. Yeah, 5.5 pretty much on the odds screen to Michigan State. VR said it's all Michigan State. Michigan State against the spread, Michigan State money line. This is a Louisville team that I was kind of kicking myself. I know you said you liked USF. And when USF came out, we did Selection Sunday. I said, okay, I'm going to bet it. And then I didn't. And then the line kept dropping. And then on Thursday, I said, okay, I got to bet Louisville now. I have to.
Yeah.
And then Louisville's up huge in the first half. And I'm going, all right, well, can't bet Louisville now. And so I kind of missed out on what could have been a really nice middle for me in that game. But Louisville's second half play kind of had me a little like, oh, what are we missing here? You know, we spoke about ACC teams and how I was looking to fade them. Kind of thoughts on the ACC outside of course, last night with Miami, because I needed Mizzou for my Calcutta outside of Miami. 1-7 against the spread the ACC is in this tournament.
I don't like doing the conference thing. Listen, there was a couple years ago, Kelly, one of the first years, I think we were in Vegas when everyone hated on the Pac-12. And then you had like Oregon State making it to the Elite Eight. USC made a run. Like the point is, it's been a bad year for the ACC. And like some of these teams aren't very good. I talked about it earlier this week on Wager Talk programming. I thought SMU was terrible and would get beat, and they did. But you still got to go matchup by matchup. So I don't like to go that angle where it's like some other ACC teams lost, so we're just going to say that all of a sudden Duke is no good, or we're going to say that Louisville can't win a game just because they're like affiliated with that conference. Reality is, Kelly, a lot of them have had matchups that haven't been ideal for them so far in this tournament, and this would be another one where the matchup is not ideal. So you said, okay, well, Louisville, they played good in the first half, not in the second half. I don't think they played differently in either half. The problem was South Florida went 5 of 33 from 3. Okay, this is a rim 3 South Florida team. Brian Hodgson plays very much like Nate Oates. He comes from the Nate Oates coaching tree, and that is the way they play. They want to take open threes, and they straight up just could not hit one of them. They just could not buy one in the first half. Not to mention, they also missed 4 or 5 easy looks at the rim. And even with the 5 of 33 from 3 and playing as bad as they did, maybe all year, one of their worst games in a while for that USF team, they still came all the way back and only lost. Were able to cover the 5.5. I think they lost by 4. So if you had 3.5 with Louisville, you would have had a nice middle. Louisville hit 13 threes in that game, Kelly. So they shot the ball. That's what Louisville wants to do. So what can Louisville do here to win? They could do what they did and go 13 for 25 from 3. They'll be in the game. But the problem is here, they're going to have to face a Michigan State front court that likely wears them down even more than South Florida did. So I don't think this Louisville team is very good in the final thing here, Kel. The reason everyone's like, oh, Tom Izzo in March, that's a common thing you hear. It's because he's really good at preparing on one-day rest. So Izzo's been great at the prep off of the win, and now you've got 48 hours to prepare for your opponent. Pat Kelsey has not been good at that. And actually, I think Pat Kelsey has been a little outclassed since he's come to the ACC. So I gotta side with the Spartans here. I just think that there's so many more advantages for them in this matchup.
All right, let's keep it going here, Trig. We only got 30 minutes. We got lots of games to get to. Texas Gonzaga is the next game. I'm going to skip over TCU Duke. We already talked about Duke being played as well as the over being played. And if you guys really want, we can go over Texas A&M Houston. I don't really care about that game. But Texas Gonzaga is really interesting. Ariel Epstein is texting me from the other room saying I'm being too loud. And I said, yeah, like you were at 2:30 this morning. But anyway, she said she's going to use Gonzaga in her Splash Sports Survivor Madness. And I don't hate that. I think that might be a good spot to use the Zags. I've got 4 entries left. I think maybe I might put the Zags in one of them. Texas getting a lot of love here. VR mentioned Square Dog. Everybody's betting him. Our guy Trent, he's on him. The mush that I love to fade, he's on him. Guess what? I think it's enough. Art's list. Art said Sharp Group, Gonzaga. I think it's like the trifecta to bet against Texas here.
Yeah, this is it kind of feels like where Texas runs out of gas, like maybe literally and figuratively. Like they came in, they played in the first 4, so they had to win the game on Tuesday, beat NC State. They fall into like what ended up being a really good matchup for them. I made the mistake of thinking BYU might show up, Kelly, and be like a very energized like version of like themselves from earlier in the season in the tournament. They just weren't. I mean, I'll give credit where credit is due. I thought Texas had a great game plan. They played a great game, but ultimately that BYU team just got worse and worse all year. And then Richie Saunders went down and they just weren't very good. So, Texas has to turn around here. Now they're playing their 3rd game in the span of 6 days. And that's a real concern for me. This Texas team does not have elite depth in the front court. Outside of Vokatitis, they are pretty thin up there. And you really don't want to get caught with their backup bigs against like Graham Ike and the Gonzaga front court. And Vokatitis has really struggled to stay out of foul trouble at times this year. So that's my concern for Texas here. Ike is going to be able to draw fouls, as will the Gonzaga, what they're going to throw at Texas, in the front court. And if Vokatitis ends up in foul trouble, which it theoretically should happen when you're playing your 3rd game in 6 days, I think they could be at a pretty big disadvantage. So Gonzaga probably wins a lot of the ISO matchups here. Texas, I think they kind of wear down. So just the general theme of this game, Kelly, Texas is going to wear down. If they get in foul trouble, which has been a problem for them this year, Gonzaga probably pulls away. I made Gonzaga minus 7.8. I may lay it. I haven't decided yet, but I'm looking at it.
I played Zags yesterday. I saw a sharp group play it. I joined in. I may add just a little bit more today. All right, let's go to two games that I care about because the chat is just they're chatting themselves up. They're like, this is the best chat.
Someone's like Trig needs to hit the gym. I'm done with that, man. I ruined my body doing CrossFit for 15 years. I don't know what that would look like. Now I'm just going to sit in front of my computer screen and try to find winners for you guys. How about that?
Okay, there you go. All right. Kelly needs to also hit the gym. After this week, I will do so. Okay, let's go to a couple games that I care about because you guys aren't dropping anything in the chat. Will you be my future ex-wife? It depends on your net worth. I mean, otherwise, what's the point of being an ex-wife? Like, if you're not going to get to take half. Oh, bad jokes. Okay, VCU, Illinois. I got VCU in a Calcutta. I got very, 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 very lucky to have VCU win that game and advance and make us a little bit of coin for that. I need VCU to make a run here because I'm afraid High Point is going to get absolutely smoked today by Arkansas. We'll get into that game here in a minute. Talk to me about this VCU-Illinois matchup. Trig, if you remember on Selection Sunday, a lot of us were saying, well, I would say it was half of us were saying that we weren't that high on Illinois. Illinois looked pretty good on Thursday.
Yeah, they did look good, but I think some of that had to do with Penn not having Ethan Roberts, TJ Power being sick. Like it
coming
just
off
Penn
that
was
big Yale win.
Coming off the big Yale win. Yeah, Ivy Madness, 2 games in 2 days, and they were like 2 sort of like barn burner type games for Penn. So yeah, I mean, Illinois did look good in that game, but I think it was a pretty favorable matchup for them. This one's tough for me, Kelly, because I make the number 8.5. So my number shows a little value to VCU, but my handicap says Illinois probably destroys them. Probably looks something like the North Carolina game before the comeback, without the comeback, right? So VCU is down 19. North Carolina, you can blame, some coaching, whatever it may be. I think North Carolina should have been able to find a way to hold a 19-point lead, but tip the cap to VCU. They came back, made plays, got back in the game, got it to overtime, won the game. If they fall behind Illinois, I just don't think that's going to be the case because when push comes to shove, Illinois, they have a lead. VCU's making a run. I just think there's too many like 1v1 good options here for Illinois to score points and just sort of like keep them at arm's length. So could you cover 10.5 with VCU? Of course. I think the books, this is a scenario where I think the books are really making you pay a tax to back Illinois. Because again, my number comes out 8.5 and I think 10.5 is big, but I kind of think it's big for a reason. So that I don't really have like a great way to, I think I used Illinois in some Survivor. I think that's what I'll say about this one. I think it's a good spot to use Illinois in Survivor because you're getting like a 10.5 point favor. I don't know how much value Illinois has in later rounds in this tournament, but like as far as an outright upset for VCU, I don't see it. Could I see them covering? Yeah, because I think the spread is about 2 points off. But if you forced a lean out of me here, I think I'd say Illinois just kind of dominates.
All right, let's talk about another game. Art said that a sharp group or two played Nebraska. Everybody loves Nebraska, Trig, and that is a concern for me. Again, when everybody loves a dog, it's kind of just one of those things where you're like, all right, this isn't a great spot. I hate this for me. It is what it is. I actually have no real opinion on this game. I thought Nebraska looked rather impressive, right? I know everybody liked Troy, and I'm sitting there at the clubhouse, me, Sammy P, a bunch of the Wager Talk guys, Sean Higgs from Picks and Parlays, and I look over and I'm like, 17-17, damn, Troy's hanging tough. Because, you got the big setups, right? Bunch of different TVs, and I was very focused on a different game at that point in time. I was focused on High Point. And I look back over and Nebraska is just kicking their asses. Like out of nowhere, that game shifted. So I apologize for not knowing why, but I don't know if Troy just couldn't hang outside of that first 10 minutes or what that was, or if this Nebraska team's a real deal. I mean, back in November when they beat my Kansas State Wildcats, I said, wow, this is a really good Nebraska team. And then we saw how K-State ended up. And I thought, maybe that win was not as prevalent as I once thought.
Yeah, listen, like, that was, I think we talked about Troy, Nebraska on the selection show when when the pairings first came out. And for me, I kind of like shied away from that one as the week went on. Looked like Nebraska would get the shots they wanted off against Troy's defense. And that's ultimately what I think happened was Nebraska just generated so many good looks over 40 minutes that Troy couldn't keep up. This is to me one of the more interesting games of today in terms of like I really think there's a way to make a case for both sides here. Listen, you've got Nebraska, Kelly playing in Oklahoma City. They showed up with a ton of fans in the first round. It's probably going to be a pro Nebraska crowd here for this game. Going to have a lot of Nebraska fans in the building. But like I don't know that this is like the best matchup for them. Vandy's got two guards, Duke Miles and Tyler Tanner, that are absolutely able to win one-on-one matchups against Nebraska's guards, get in the paint, make plays, get to the rim. So it's like I really had a tough time with like I actually my number. So the betting market in this one has played this a couple different ways. They bet Nebraska at one point, and this is like where I wish we still had Gianni on the show because he would be able to really like tell you exactly what happened. But they bet Nebraska down to like -1.5. It came back the other way. Vandy took some money, now up to 2.5. I kind of agree with the Vanderbilt money, Cal. Getting bet down now, bet up to 2.5. I made the number Vandy -3.1. And I guess it comes down to how much stock you're going to put into a little bit of home court at the Paycom Center for Nebraska. Yes, they're going to have a lot of fans in attendance, but I don't know that I put like too many points on the number for them. And maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know. I that's not one. I mean, I remember Syracuse getting to play in Albany back in 2003, and it was a home court advantage for sure. Like without a doubt, it was all Cuse fans. So maybe I should put more stock into the fact that it's going to be a very pro Nebraska crowd. But man, I love that backcourt for Vandy, and I think Miles and Tanner could be a real issue here. So one of the tougher ones of the day for me. That's all I got.
I'm looking. I know you were looking for VR to ask what he was seeing. So I did look up John Ewing. 93% of the tickets are on Michigan State, 91% on Duke, 87% on Houston, 81% on Arkansas, 71% on Texas. Texas is the lone dog, 66% on Illinois. Those are the most popular bets over at BetMGM, according to John Ewing. Shout out to him for putting those kind of things out because I do find it intriguing, right? I get some insight from the Superbook, from Circa and a few others. So to see what MGM has, we know that is a square book. That's why I like to have it on my odds logic screen up and present because I want to know who's betting what. I can't believe it. I should. After yesterday's Chalk Fest, of course, everybody is betting those guys. VR mentioned there's going to be a bunch of moneyline parlays with 3, 4, or 5 of those teams. Let's talk about my other Calcutta team because I need some positivity this morning, Trig. High Point, Arkansas. High Point just absolutely played their hearts out, right? You could just tell they wanted it more than Wisconsin. I watched that game start to finish. They were so much fun that I called my Calcutta partners after 2 margaritas on FaceTime, and neither one of them answered. Shocking. But it was just an awesome way to start the tournament to cash that, to get that team on the money line was amazing. Arkansas, though, was the team on Selection Sunday. You said at 60-1. I think there's some value for them to win the whole thing. Talk to me about this game.
Yeah, I mean, I dressed to talk about this game. I showed up in my High Point zip up that I got when I was down at the Cubane Center last year. I have to rep the, I saw your tweet earlier. There's only a couple mid-majors left. And as a mid-major guy, I got to, this might be the last weekend of mid-majors if a High Point or a VCU or someone doesn't win. But Kelly, listen, High Point's not in a horrible spot here. And this game is going to be super high variance. You have a total of 169.5, and you're probably going to see points. And there are ways if you want to just do a quick comparison, I think there's more of a path to victory here for High Point than there is for VCU. Why is that? Well, High Point they're just going to chuck for a lot of this game. They're going to take a lot of threes and they can make them. So again, you look at a game with a total of 169. I kind of think it goes over, even though that number is big. And it could be a high variance type game. Kind of think like Arkansas Ole Miss from the SEC tournament. I was on Ole Miss in a similar spread range, and they just kind of went bombs away. They just got as many shots up as they could, and they ended up hanging around with Arkansas in that game. You talk about Arkansas and me say, I pointed out, I think there's value at 60-1. There absolutely is. But Kelly, this is not the team that I want to be laying 11 or 12 points with on a quick turnaround. John Calipari, for as good of a coach as he is not the best prep coach. He's not the best on turning around and preparing for an opponent, especially one he's not super familiar with, on 48 hours rest. And that's what Arkansas is going to have to do here. Combine that with the fact that there is some youth on this team. They're a little bit young. That could be an issue in this quick turnaround. Now, what Arkansas is, as opposed to Wisconsin, the team that High Point just beat, is super athletic. Arkansas is so much more athletic than Wisconsin is. Could that bother High Point? Yeah, it probably could. But again, I think High Point's going to be trying to get into their offense, shoot threes, and then force turnovers. So, Arkansas, I love Darius Acuff. He's an electric guard, but if Arkansas is not fully ready here, Kel, and High Point can force some turnovers, which they are as good as anyone in a mid-major, any mid-major at forcing turnovers and turning it into offense on the other end, they can hang around here. And I think for a pick in this game, I'll say over 169.5, because I think you're going to have a lot of points. Arkansas might get to the rim at will here. I think you're going to have a lot of points both ways, but don't count High Point out. They could be the story this year. This is not the worst matchup for them, and they can score. So this might be your ticket right here.
I don't know. I just looked at some of the calculations. I hope that the chat's right, that maybe Illinois does have the flu. I don't know. I didn't see anything on social media, but boy, would that be a nice bailout for your girl. Rob Veno just texted us. He said, if you guys are giving out a parlay, I like Vandy minus 1.5. Well, I didn't know we were giving out a parlay.
Of course we're giving out a parlay.
I know.
No, that's listen, I'm glad Rob chimed in there, because we just talked Nebraska Vandy. I feel like we didn't really have a strong way to go on that game.
Now.
We'll use the money line for the parlay. That's fine.
Okay. All right.
I'm glad Rob chimed in with that. I don't know if that'll make my card or anything, but I certainly, I guess I lean with him. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I said my number was Vandy minus 3.1. So I can get down with that. We'll use Vandy for the parlay for Rob.
Okay. All right. Go ahead and give yours out. And do I have to use a Saturday game, or can I use a Sunday game?
I guess you could use a Sunday game if you want.
I might use a Sunday game. All right.
All right. I will. You want me to go first?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to go to one of the NIT games tonight that I'm interested in. I heard Gianni bring it up that he makes the number Dayton -4 in that game. And I'm really hoping that maybe it gets to -4, because I like UNC Wilmington here, but 4 would be kind of like the point I would play it. So for our parlay, we'll use threes, because the threes are popping out. But maybe it will get to 4.5, and I'll add it for clients. So why do I like Wilmington here, Kelly? Well, first of all, they're the home team. Dayton is the higher seed, but of course the play-in round being at Dayton displaced Dayton from being able to host games in the NIT. So what that means for them is they had to go out to Bradley, Peoria, Illinois, play a midweek game, and now they've got to stay on the road and go to Wilmington, North Carolina. Trask Coliseum, I was just there, where Wilmington is 52-13 straight up the last 5 years at Trask Coliseum. It is an electric venue, great home atmosphere. I was at the season finale when they lost to Charleston, and Siddle, their head coach, got on the mic, thanked all the fans who basically stayed around to listen to what he had to say, and said, you know what? Don't worry about it. We're going to go and win the CAA tournament, and we're going to get back to the NCAA tournament. And that ultimately didn't happen. Okay. We know that Wilmington ended up getting upset in their conference tournament. I don't think they wanted to be in the NIT. Obviously, no one does when you're in a one bid league, when you're a team like Wilmington, you kind of accept the fact that, hey, if it doesn't work out in our conference tournament, we're not going to go, and we're going to have to go to the NIT. They look fired up to play earlier this week. They go into Yale, get a great upset win. I think Wilmington really cares about this tournament. Whereas Dayton, they were one win away from the NCAA tournament and lost to VCU. So it's not that they don't care, but Bradley wasn't really ready to play earlier this week. So they kind of just walked through that game. They're going to get a Wilmington team that is absolutely ready to play tonight. that's going to probably have a pretty close to sold out crowd in the 5,500 seat Trask Coliseum that has a really good front line that's going to put a lot of pressure on their bigs, and that's 52-13 straight up at home the last 5 years. So I think Wilmington probably should be closer to pick. Now that it's 3, it's caught my attention. Get me to 4, it's probably a client play. So I'll throw Wilmington +3 in the parlay.
All right, I'm going to start us off on the Sunday games. If you guys have a question about a Sunday game, drop it in the chat, and Trigger and I'll get to it. We got 10 minutes. I got another live show at 9 a.m., so we got about 9.5 minutes left, so I'll go quick. Iowa State -5.5 for me tomorrow. This is a Kentucky team that I said right there yesterday morning in the Superbook. Santa Clara +3 in pocket with my guys from South Carolina watching the early game before we headed over to the Wynn to see the Mad Russian, and boy, was that insane. Kentucky needed every bit of that miracle. Even with a minute left, Santa Clara up 1. That final result was not actually indicative of how that game was played out. So I am fading the Kentucky Wildcats. I am taking my national champion, the Iowa State Cyclones, with that top 5 rated defense, that 3-point shooting firepower to just absolutely wax this Kentucky Wildcats team. Lay the 5.5 still available right now all across the odds logic screen, this morning. I think this one's going to go to 6 here shortly, and it's probably going to only go one way because everybody's going to agree with me that Kentucky probably didn't deserve to win that basketball game. All right, any thoughts on St. John's, Kansas? Craig wants to know here. This is another one I looked at. I bet against Kansas yesterday. Cal Baptist was my lone bright spot. Great second half by them. I didn't know anything about Cal Baptist. If you remember, Trig, we talked about it on Selection Sunday, and I immediately said, this is a lot of points for a Kansas team that has not been impressive to me. And Rob said, hey, Cal, be careful. Darren Peterson's going to have to show out to get that number 1 overall pick. And I said, nah, that guy hasn't played basketball all year.
Yeah, listen, St. John's really impressed me yesterday. They were, that was a matchup that I didn't think was great for them when the pairings were announced. I thought Northern Iowa could give them trouble in the respect that it's like just not the game they really wanted to play. But man, St. John's came right out of the gate, tons of energy, built up a lead and never really gave it back. And I think that's so key for like how you're evaluating St. John's, because when their defense plays the way they did yesterday, they're flying all over the floor, tons of ball pressure, and they're creating turnovers. That team's going to be a tough out. And I just like, if they show up like that tomorrow, they'll beat Kansas. If they show up like that, Kelly, in the Sweet 16, they'll beat Duke. So it's like, I'm kind of like, I don't really want to bet against St. John's right now, because what we've now seen the last 2 times they've stepped on the floor, Big East championship game where they just bludgeoned UConn. And that's now the second time they've done that to UConn this year. The first time was at the Garden earlier this year, where they pressured the heck out of UConn's guards and they really couldn't get into their offense. They do it again in the Big East championship game, come right back out last night. Northern Iowa had no chance. Like from the tip-off, 10-13 St. John's, Northern Iowa had no chance. And it's all goes back to...
And I was on them. No chance.
And it all goes back to their ball pressure, their defense, and then their defense creating the offense. Can they do that against Kansas? Yeah, I don't see why not. Kansas started to struggle with Cal Baptist, who has a great sort of defensive game plan as well. That's sort of how they go into that game, and they got it going in the second half. So yeah, Kansas is probably vulnerable there.
All right, lots of guys are asking about Texas Tech, Bama. I want to get through as many of these as we can, Trig. So give me some rapid fire thoughts on this one. Current line, this is the late game tomorrow. Texas Tech is a 1.5-point favorite. Whoa. That one is getting a lot of Texas Tech love. I got Texas Tech 50-1 to win the whole thing. They're not going to. I know I screwed up on the Kelly Murray show. I said Obi Toppin. Trig, blonde moment, tired moment. JT Toppin gets hurt, and I knew that 50-1 was dead on arrival. Not going to lie. Yesterday, I was like, wait a minute. Ariel and I have Texas Tech 50-1 in pocket. Should I go ahead and hamper those expectations?
No, and you know what's funny? Like, I know Iowa State picked up a tough injury too yesterday with Jefferson getting hurt, but like, just to talk about the Big 12 in general for a minute, because this was something I brought up earlier this week. I think because if you watched Big 12 basketball this year and had every team sort of go through the Big 12 gauntlet that they went through, I think there's 3 teams right now out of the Big 12 that I think are very underrated in terms of like they could all end up in a Final Four. And those 3 teams are Iowa State, which I would have liked a lot more prior to Jefferson getting hurt, Texas Tech, and Houston. Kansas gets love for being Kansas, and they're the one I would throw out. And of course, Arizona is the one that everyone's putting in the Final Four. But man, Texas, like they do lack size. So that's the thing. Toppin being out kills some of their size. But I mean, the guards they have are outstanding. They still have a great scoring backcourt. Now, Bama's going to go to the rim. That could give them some trouble, I suppose. But Bama's also going to take a lot of 3-point shots, and it's like this is still a winnable game for them. And I wouldn't count Texas Tech out in any game they play the rest of the way. I guess that's the point I was trying to make. Kelly, for the Sunday games, like right now, I see a lot of people asking about NIT stuff in the chat. I feel like if you want me to go rapid fire, I can probably answer about 5 of their questions real quick because like that's where a lot of the questions are.
Trig, you got the floor for the next 3 minutes and 50 seconds.
Oh, that's plenty of time to get through the NIT for today and tomorrow. So here's the deal with the NIT. First round, we talked about it on Full Court Press. It's almost like bowl season for football. You got to know who's playing, who's not. And we track this on our show. Sure enough, a lot of the teams that advanced were teams that were at full strength, taking it seriously. A lot of the teams that lost had guys out or, were just for one reason or another, were in tough travel and they ended up losing the game. So I already pointed out a tough travel spot for you with Dayton going from Peoria to Wilmington. The other one tonight there's one tonight and we'll go to the Sunday games. Liberty, Nevada tonight is interesting because Metheny is out for Liberty. He's their best player. He didn't matter against George Mason, who also didn't seem to be taking this tournament seriously. But now they've got to go all the way out to Reno. He might matter a little bit here in Nevada. Certainly seems to be taking this tournament seriously. I saw Nevada take a little bit of money this morning. However, that's now up to like 8.5 or 9. That there's a point where I think you could punch back at that with Liberty. I think that point would be 10. Tomorrow's game. So I saw someone in the chat ask about Wichita State. They were one, so they showed up full strength, and they certainly were there to win their game, and they did. But I need to know the status of Will Berg for that game. He left with an injury. Now, they're going to play an Oklahoma State team that had guys out for discipline. Oklahoma State was without 4 starters against Davidson. Now, one of them we know was Parsifala. He's done for the year. He blew out his knee. He's done for the year. But Anthony Roy not playing, and then 2 of their other starters, Victorious Miller, and the other name is escaping me, were disciplinary reasons. So what I'd be looking for with Oklahoma State is, are those guys back? My gut says yes. And then, of course, the status of Will Berg for Wichita State. I think that really you have to know those things before you know what to do with Wichita State, Oklahoma State. So that's one to look at for tomorrow. What I'm interested in tomorrow, Tulsa, UNLV. David Green did not play for Tulsa earlier this week. David Green is Tulsa's best player. He is their main sort of like physical presence in the paint, and he's just their all-around best player by a wide margin. They snuck by Stephen F. Austin earlier this week without him. They are now going to be a 4.5-point favorite against a UNLV team that A, they all showed up. Josh Pastner and his whole team there, and B, Pastner did an interview after they lost and was pretty excited about getting his team to play in this tournament. And I was just hoping UNLV would have everyone there. They did against Irvine. They went on the road and beat a good Irvine team. I don't know that they should be a 4.5-point dog if Tulsa shows up without David Green, which again is probably likely he's not going to play if he didn't play the other day. So those are some NIT thoughts. The final one I'll leave you with, St. Joe's looked really good against Colorado State. They're a 6-point dog tomorrow against California. I would not be surprised if they won that game outright.
All right. The chat has been really funny. I was reading the chat while you were talking about NIT because I don't care about the NIT unless, of course.
But if you care about making money, those are the games you probably want to bet.
You're probably correct. You're probably correct. I'm just teasing Trig. We all know that that's part of the whole show stitch. Shout out to all of you guys for hanging out with us here on Last Call. Trig, Iowa State, Vanderbilt, and UNC Wilmington is our parlay.
That's our parlay. Vandy will go money line. Iowa State -5.5. Wilmington +3.
All right. Good luck to us. Good out to all of you guys. Thank you guys again for hanging out with us here on Last Call. Adam Trigger, hope you have a wonderful day. I plan to do the same.